just what first comes to me is I think that in that moment, when you're in a social situation and you're not able to close your eyes and sit down and spend 15 minutes turning inward, I mean, people might think you were crazy if you did something like that. But I think what we can do, we can notice that. We can say, and you can have a quick few second conversation with that figure, with that being, with that energy, with that little child, with that wounded little boy, whatever it is that's coming. And that grief, that grieving one that's often going to be triggered and activated in social situations. I mean, the way I see it, all of our wounding, all of our emotional wounding, including attachment wounding, narcissistic wounding, any sort of relational trauma, all of this arises in the context of relationship. It doesn't just arise spontaneously when we're walking down the street. And so it's best tended to, some would believe, including myself, in the context of relationship. And so there is something about the relational field that is unique in its capacity and ability to bring up and remind us of everything that's unresolved, that's less than resolved or unresolved within us. All of the ghosts of our unlived life tend to be evoked by relationship. And so just coming down to earth for a minute, just practically speaking, it's to slow, what you can do in that moment is to slow down, take one breath, feel your feet on the ground, and say to that emotion, to that image, to that figure, to that impulse, to that urge, however it presents to you. It could be something in your body. It could be this thought telling you that, hey, something's wrong with you. You know, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It reaches out to us in different ways, that material, as you called it. And you can just say, this time, I'm not turning from you. I'm not ignoring you. I hear you. I really want to come closer to you. I want to understand you. I want to work with this. I want to open my heart to you. And again, you have to find the language that's right to you, and to just name that, and then just say, and in this moment, I cannot do that. I'm not actually able to do that. And there's something about, and that can take 5 or 10 seconds once you practice it. We can always do that. We can always find that 5 or 10 seconds. But in my experience, what happens is that somehow we communicate to the inner figures, to the unconscious, to the shadow, whatever language we want to use for this. Every tradition has a different language, but we communicate to these inner figures that I'm not abandoning you this time. I just can't tend to, I cannot tend to you right now. I'm going to honor that you're there. And then you make a vow, you make a commitment, you make a promise. And here's my promise to you. Here's my aspiration. Here's my intention that in 2.5 hours, when I get back home and I'm really tired and all I want to do is go to sleep, what I'm going to do before I fall asleep is I'm going to reconnect with you for a few moments. And you can, so that's just one practical idea that I've used, that I know clients have used, that has been really helpful. But what happens is when you don't just turn in the moment, when you don't fully ignore that material, but you find some way to touch it, to acknowledge it, just in that moment, there is some way that you're sending a message to your soul, to your psyche, to the little ones, to the internal ones, to the guests, you know, whoever you refer to them as, that I'm interested. I'm interested and I'm listening and I hear you, and you're and I want to validate your presence, and I want to honor the reality that I can't be with you right now. I can't tend to you, but it's not because I don't want to. It's not because I just want to push you away. I'm in a situation that doesn't allow for that. So that's one approach. The other approach is, it's interesting how often, even in the midst of a social situation, in a business meeting, at a party, at a concert, we can also just we can just say, excuse me for a second, got to run to the bathroom, gonna check, even to actually just walk away if we can. No, we can't always do that, but and we can communicate that clearly to a person with, hey, I noticed that I'm feeling really activated right now, and I really want to be present with you, and I really want to be here in this situation, but I just need to take a couple of minutes and sort of just ground back into myself to listen. And we make a commitment to the person. Could you just give me a few minutes and I'll be right back? and you take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. And so those are just a couple of ideas that I have. But basically the point is reaching out, making a connection in that moment, and then coming back to it later. Because, and we can't just be walking around doing inner work all the time. But I think we have to acknowledge that social situations, being with other people, is going to evoke everything that's unresolved within us. That's the nature of the relational field. And to begin to develop a dialogue with ourselves around that, and making an intention and a commitment to coming back to pieces and parts of ourselves, it opens up space and movement in the psyche if we do that.